Okay. So, hi, Alyssa. Could you please tell me more about yourself?
Sure. So my name's Alyssa PELLIN. I'm 24. I've been training jiu-jitsu since I was 18. Currently training less seriously because I'm a vet student, which is very, very demanding. I actually had to move to an island, so I'm actually living in SaintKitts. So there's not much jiu-jitsu there. It's actually very, very different culture. So it was kind of a culture shock to go and train there. But yeah, I'm a vet student. I've been training for, I don't know, 18 plus 6 years almost. And I'm a purple belt. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Great, thanks. So purple belt, could you tell me just what are the belts in jiu-jitsu? What's like the progression?
So normally it goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. Some gyms will do with stripes in between. So you could be like a blue belt with 3 stripes, purple belt with 2 stripes, and then it goes, I think it's 1 to 4 stripes. We don't do the stripe system at my gym, so I'm not too familiar with it. But yeah, so it goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. And some gyms will do that you have to pass a test before you get your belt. But our gym is very just, my gym, I train at 10th Planet Montreal, just for context. Our gym is very merit based. So when the coaches believe that you've deserved to be promoted, then you're promoted. So it could be 6 months, it could be 5 years. It depends on how much work you're willing to put in and how much time you train, and obviously how efficient you're training. If you're getting better quicker, then you might get your belt quicker, and vice versa, which I really appreciate that system. So in 6 years, I'm now a purple belt. And jiu-jitsu is one of the martial arts where it takes the longest to get your black belt. So on average, I would say it's about 10 to 12 years. And that's I would say that's average. But I've known people who got it, there's some famous athletes who got it in 3 years. And my coach got, my coach got his black belt in 6 years, obviously, because he trained multiple times a day, every day. So obviously when you're doing that, you get better quicker. But yeah, so that's how it works. White, blue, purple, brown, black.
Okay, thanks. Did you come to the new location of 10th Planet?
No, not yet. I haven't been yet. I'm still in quarantine technically until the 26th.
Oh, true. So yeah, you said your coach got it in that's Corey, right?
Yeah, Corey.
Yeah, he got it pretty quick. I was wondering how it worked because I also know that there was the NoGi Jiu-Jitsu and then there's the Ghee Jiu-Jitsu. So yeah. I know that 10th Planet is NoGi and it's a bit different. And it seems like a lot more contemporary in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So traditionally it was very, Jiu-Jitsu was in the Ghee. And then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so that was Japanese Jiu-Jitsu was in the Ghee. And then the Brazilians kind of took a spin on it, still in the Ghee. So still now the Brazilian modern form is in the Ghee, but then now it's even more contemporary, like you said, in the NoGi, and that's becoming more and more popular now because of, I would say, MMA. A lot of people use it to train in mixed martial arts, which is more, obviously you're not wearing a gi when you're training mixed martial arts. I personally like NoGi better. It's a lot less hot. I just like how I don't have any, how would I say? I don't have any hacks. It has to be my body and their body, and that's it. I won't be able to choke them with their gi because for me it translates really well for self-defense. I don't have to rely on the person. If God forbid I'm walking down the street and I get attacked by someone who's wearing a tank top, obviously if the person's a black belt, they'll still be very avid in self-defense. But for me, that's why I initially started in NoGi, is because I liked the mixed martial arts aspect about it, and as well as like how easily it translates to self-defense.
Yeah, I guess maybe traditionally people would wear like, let's say even a tuxedo kind of looks like a gi. Like I guess like the collar, you can kind of use it to like choke the person. And like everyone wore kind of the same thing, I guess, or like a kimono. I don't know like what they were, but today, I mean, people wear tank tops in the street. So
It's really interesting too because the sports are kind of evolving like this. Like the style is completely different.
really,
Like if you watch a gi fight, it's very slow, it's very like defensive, very like patience oriented. A lot of a lot of gi tournaments will also be centered around points and less about like submission only, whereas in no-gi it's very high pace, a lot of like very athletic, slippery, quick movements, and a lot of the tournaments that are no-gi are very like submission oriented, so they have a lot of no point system, just submission only, that type of thing. Obviously there exists both in each one, but it's very interesting if you were to watch a tournament. Sometimes if you go to like your like your local tournament, not so much in Montreal anymore, but they'll have gi fights and no gi fights going on at the same time, and it's like one of them they're just sitting there trying to fiddle with, like it's super technique oriented, like very slow, like chess almost, and no gi is very like, it reminds me almost of wrestling, how it's like so high paced and like quick movements. So it's very interesting to see them like now, what started off as the same sport, kind of like each take their own path and like evolve differently. It's really interesting.
Well, before I move on to the next question, yeah, I actually went to 10th Planet a couple times this month, and it was like my first time trying. I tried with the Ghee a couple of years ago, but then like the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, I think it's very different. I remember when I tried Jiu-Jitsu with the Ghee, it was like the whole class was structured with like showing techniques and like different movements that you do, and a lot of it started also like standing up. But then I went to the Planet at Monk, and it was like you just get right into it, and then it's like so creative. I don't know how to explain. Like, let's say I train Muay Thai too, and Muay Thai, you know, there's like this kind of clear structure of like you got your 8 parts of the body you can hit with, and you have like the jab, the cross, whatever. But then the no-gi jiu-jitsu, it's like, okay, you're in this position, then what do you do? But there's like, not that there's no rules, but it can get like so creative. You can just do anything with your body, so it's like so much more, it can expand so much more than like those more traditional techniques where you like have to apply this technique to get a point. It's just like, no, how do you submit the other person, and then you can do anything. So I thought that was really cool. But to move on, so what are your goals with this practice?
With jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
So initially when I was 18, I really wanted to be a professional in mixed martial arts. That was like my goal. I idolized Ronda Rousey, who was like the first woman MMA fighter in the UFC. And that was my goal for a really long time. And so I was training boxing and Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling all at the same time. And I fell more out of love with the striking, and really loved the grappling, like wrestling and Jiu-Jitsu. And it, to me, like as a young woman, it was more sustainable because I've been an athlete my whole life. I've been knocked in the head more than once. And so to me, like the grappling part was just more sustainable long term. And so then my goal became centered around jiu-jitsu. And then when COVID hit all this time, by the way, I've been a student. So I've been training jiu-jitsu pretty much full time while going to school, doing my bachelor's degree. And I finally, when I graduated, I got a job working in animal care. And that's where I really found like my passion. I was like, okay, this is really what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. It was so fulfilling to me. So then it became less about making a career out of jiu-jitsu and more about making a career out of my passion for animal welfare and veterinary medicine. So for me now, it's more of like just becoming as good as I could be. Obviously, I really want to be a black belt. But I also get very stressed in competition. So I do still plan on competing and pushing myself to do that. It just became less fun for me to be competing all the time. It was like a really heavy burden. So I just plan on pursuing my career in veterinary medicine, making a difference in animal welfare, and hopefully getting my black belt sooner than later, and enjoying my time with my friends at the gym, who are just like some of my favorite people in the whole world. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. And so you said that you started when you were 18, and how did you kind of like get into that martial arts combat sports community of Montreal?
So I did your, excuse me, I did your typical karate as a kid. I didn't like it, but like I said, I was an athlete my whole life. So I was like, my parents always told me like, you're so good at karate, like you should get back into it. And I really didn't like it, but I really wanted to learn some self-defense. And so I had literally Googled like kickboxing in the West Island, because I live in the West Island in Montreal. And a gym popped up, so I went JKS Martial Arts in Pointe Claire. So I had started training there and doing mostly kickboxing at first, like I had said. And then I don't even remember, one of my friends was like, you should come try, we're going tonight to train at 10th Planet. And I was like, oh, like jiu-jitsu? And he was like, yeah, like you could come just try it out. And I was like, okay. And I remember the first day I went, it was a class taught by Lewis, who's the head coach at the gym. And he showed this arm bar, and I did an arm bar on my friend, and I was like instantly hooked. I was like, okay, I need to know everything there is about this. So it started off as just like a Google of like how to learn self-defense. And then I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, and then it just became like a passion. It literally was like about self-defense for maybe like 2 weeks. And then it became like, I just love this sport so much. So obviously now I'm very confident in my ability to defend myself, but it's less about that for me now and more about just enjoying the sport.
Thank you so much. I actually watched one of Lewis's classes like recently, and that also blew my mind. I was like, how? He just like goes on and he thinks of all these things, and he's like, yeah, and then when you're there, well, you can do this. And it's like, how do you even, and it's like long sequences, and it's like, how does one even think about these things?
Yeah, I really admire Lewis. He gives off that traditional sensei vibe, and he's very hard to impress, which I like thrive to like impress him. So I love that about him. Like some people would say that like they prefer like an easy, how would you even say, like a coach that would just be like, good job all the time, or like, good job, great work. And for me, I'm like, no, if he says good job to me, which is like maybe once every year, then I know that when I did something, it's like, okay, I'm actually doing a good job. But yeah, Lewis has been training for so long. He has like moves for counters, and it's just like there's so much jiu-jitsu in his brain. It's crazy.
I like how you put it that way. Yeah. Okay, so the project kind of centers around the experience of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So you said that you actually moved to an island for vet school, I guess, in the past year, and you kind of were training less, but I guess COVID-19 still had an effect on your practice.
Yeah. So when I remember being at the gym the night that Corey announced that we were going to close indefinitely, and I was a little bit relieved because looking back on it now, I had been training for so long, so intensely, and had it not been for that break because of COVID, I think I would have actually burnt out and like really lost my passion for it. So looking back now, I'm like almost grateful that it happened that way, because it forced me to take a break and then like come back to it on my own terms, and like being actually like passionate and like doing it because I like it, not doing it because I felt the pressure to like reach a certain level before a certain age and be better than this person and do better than, like, do you know what I mean? So I was almost grateful to have that like forced break, but he announced that the gym would be closing indefinitely, and because of COVID. And for me, that was like a huge change to my lifestyle also, because I had been going every day, sometimes twice a day. And so all of a sudden, like I had in the evenings, I was like, okay, like I guess I'll watch TV, or like I guess I don't know, like go for a walk. Like we didn't have that, like every night at 8 p.m. I would go to class, and we didn't have that anymore. So it was like a huge lifestyle change for me, and as I'm sure a lot of my teammates. And then there was I'm not sure how much I can divulge about the training that I did like during COVID, but some people were like, my boyfriend has mats in his house, so we were doing a little bit of training. He was in my bubble. I know some people were doing something similar, like at their apartment, like as responsible as we could be, being like jiu-jitsu addicts, you know? So I trained a little bit here and there with people that were in my bubble, but nothing compared to the training schedule that I had been doing before. And then, so that was in March of 2020. And then come January 2021, I started vet school. So I think I kind of underestimated how intense it was going to be. And it really took up like the majority of my time awake. So I barely had time to even watch like TV, walk my dog. And then I didn't train. I haven't really trained at 10th Planet since January 2021. And then in late April 2021, I moved. And so Jiu-Jitsu in SaintKitts I was surprised. So when I moved to SaintKitts, I didn't know this, but in SaintKitts, homosexuality is illegal. So you can go to jail for being gay. So a lot of the men are very apprehensive about training and learning jiu-jitsu because it appears like gay, they would say. That's not my opinion. That's their words.
That's crazy, because I thought it was just like a joke in like memes from other martial arts practices that were like, oh, BJJ is gay, whatever. But like it can actually have those consequences that like it's not practiced because it's gay, and like, oh my God, that's crazy.
It's crazy. When I was in SaintKitts, there's two locals who train. They're both blue belts. And they were very excited that I was there, for one, because I'm a purple belt and I was able to show them some things that were from a different type of jiu-jitsu. But two, they were telling me that they're so happy to have a woman train because it takes away from the gay factor. And my jaw was on the floor. I was like, I can't even, like, that's so sad. That is so sad.
And it's like the complete opposite from here, because I've talked to someone who was telling me about like women. It was like a man telling me about like women coming into martial arts training and how sometimes like women would be uncomfortable because of, it was like a type of grappling martial arts. So, you know, like women can be like, oh, it's weird with the men, like maybe they'll try to like pull one or whatever. But the man was like, it actually makes me uncomfortable because that's not my intention. And I don't want the woman to interpret something that I do as like, not. So it's like as uncomfortable for both, maybe even more for men, because they're like afraid that the woman would think But then here it's like you go to SaintKitts and the men are like, yay, a woman to train with. Like, we're not gay. It's like completely, well, so different.
What was crazy was we would train in the park because of COVID-19. So we weren't allowed to train indoors and we had to train with a mask on. And so me being like kind of not, well, 100% not in the same shape that I was like a year ago, already struggling in like the dead sun of SaintKitts to like grapple with these men that are like 3 times my size. And then they're like, okay, by the way, you have to wear a mask. I was like, this is the hardest cardio I've done in like 2 years. But you would see like cops definitely, like there were cops in the park, and well, their police is the army. So the army was literally, they were sitting and they were watching us train, like, okay. And I can feel that it was more so about the men like rolling and touching each other than the fact that we were in a pandemic and like all touching each other. It was very like, it's something that I've never experienced. Obviously, like, well, I'm a straight woman, so I've never experienced like any, but just to see that happen like in front of me towards them, I was like, it's very, very sad.
Yeah. And is SaintKitts an independent island, or is it like, okay.
Yeah. So it was initially colonized by England, and then they got their independence, and I don't remember the exact year. But yeah, it's an independent country.
I thought you were going to say that like the military were taking notes on your techniques, but no.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that your involvement with the community kind of was transformed because you got to experience jiu-jitsu in another country. Were they training with Ghee, these men?
No.
Oh, so there's no Ghee as well?
Yeah, well, for them, it's like way too hot to train in the Ghee.
Okay, so it's
it's like 30 degrees plus every single day. And electricity is super expensive. So often in the gyms, it's not even air conditioned.
Okay.
So the Ghee would just be like torture. So they're very, very no Ghee there, which is very cool. I would have expected the opposite, honestly. Just from like, I don't know. Normally when people start jiu-jitsu, it's like in the Ghee, it's the traditional form, but yeah, no, it's very no Ghee there.
Well, I guess that with social media, like I feel like 10th Planet, I don't know if it's all jiu-jitsu, but there's a lot of people who are very much online.
Yeah, learning stuff online, and I saw this video, let's try it out of my basement type of thing.
Yeah, and then so it's cool because like the practice, since it's so online, the NoGi community can really spread, like let's say to a place like SaintKitts, and you can keep like learning. I know that Corey did like a whole online series too, so you could even like try to practice from SaintKitts, you know?
That's exactly what we were doing. So there's a few, aside from like the locals who train, there's a lot of students who want to train or have trained and want to get back into it. And so I would have like, I kind of like it, but I would have like these yoga mats that I bought that were like a little bit thicker than a traditional yoga mat, but like nowhere near like the mats that we have at the gym. And I would invite my classmates over and we would just train in my front yard on the grass, like on these yoga mats. And it was like so backyard jiu-jitsu that I almost like appreciated it more because like it was nice. We had like nothing, but we still just like loved jiu-jitsu and wanted to train together. And it was like in the midst of like all the stress of all our school and like being away from home and all this stuff, like we just would come together at the end of the day and just like beat each other up. It's really, really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay. So here in Montreal, I kind of have an idea of how the community of like martial arts and combat sports is perceived. I guess it's totally different in SaintKitts, especially for jiu-jitsu. I really wasn't ready for that.
I know,
gay thing, but okay. Yeah. But I guess like, well, I don't know how to frame this question. I was gonna ask you like, can you explain how jiu-jitsu is not gay? But that just, I don't know if that's like legit for my research project.
Can I explain maybe like, I don't know. It's more of like I think I know a lot of people too, like my brother, I'll always say like, come train with me. And he's like, I don't want to roll around and like touch people and like a lot of like, I'm not going to lie to you, like the first time that you lie on the ground and you go like, for people that don't know the basic like guard position, you're lying on your back and your legs are wrapped around a person who's like literally right in front of you on their knees. So it like based on strictly like body position, it does look like very sexual. So I can understand like like how it could be uncomfortable. But once you get past that like initial, like, okay, I'm here to learn a sport and you're here to learn a sport. Like, let's just for a second forget about the fact that it like looks awkward and just like focus on like what we're here to do. You get past that awkwardness and it honestly takes maybe about a day, like one class, and you get past that like awkwardness and you're like, okay, no, everyone is here to like train. No one's here for like an ulterior motive, although there are some exceptions, obviously. But it honestly, like once you get past that, like just try it and give it a try, and you'll see like the more experienced people like set the tone of the room and are not like here to be weird or like touch people. Like it's so not a non-existent issue for the people that train. And I think that like to the outside people, once they just give it a try and like experience the vibe of the room and like meet the people, they're like, okay, had a total misconception of what this was going to be. So I think people who are like maybe a little apprehensive, like mostly my experience, my brother, people who are apprehensive about starting, like just give it a try and you'll see that it's like so not what you're worried about.
Yeah, I even had that apprehension, not like the sexual aspect of it, but just like I didn't like to be that much in contact with people. But then so it took me a while to go try it out, and like Corey was very much like, take your time, totally understand, because I was like, oh, I want to come, but like it's kind of weird to be that close. Like there's not that many practices where you have to be so much in contact with another person and you're literally like rolling on each other. But then I went, and finally, like you said, like once the tone is set by the more experienced people or the coach, then you get so focused on the actual technique, which is like very complicated to grasp and to like embody. Because like when they show you something, it's like these movements that are, it's just very special jiu-jitsu, like to understand for your brain too. And then once you get into it, I mean, they're hard. It's like a hard practice. And if you're distracted by all these like other weird thoughts, well, you'll just get submitted. And let's be clear, like submission it's like it's painful and it's like getting choked. Like you don't want that. So might as well like focus on the actual sport, you know? Yeah. Because or else like you're just gonna get beat. So it's not fun.
Exactly. I felt it was so important for me to like turn my love for the sport into like making it, like bringing it back to self-defense. So I did a lot of women's classes, and because I know being a woman going into a gym or into a room that's primarily like men, sometimes I would be the only woman in a class of 40 men. And so I can just imagine how intimidating that would be for a woman who's like, you know what, I want to start jiu-jitsu, I want to learn self-defense, and they show up and it's like 30 men. Like not many women that I know would want to do that. Like it's so intimidating, especially given the nature of the sport. So I and my friend Pauline really tried to focus on like making women's classes available to women who were uncomfortable to go and train with women. So it was like an all women's class, women, etc. So if you identify as a woman, you're welcome to come. And it was just women jiu-jitsu taught by women, and just like a safe environment for people to do so. And that for me was like almost more rewarding than the actual like sport itself. So I would go to like, I did once, what I loved is one of my friends is a teacher at a college in Laval, and she asked me to come. She's like head of the feminist club at her where she teaches. And I went and I did like this 2-hour little seminar where I showed all the girls how to like basic armbar, choke, how to like get out of if someone grabs you, like, and they were so excited, and like you can see like the body language change. They were like worried to like, oh, it's like, oh, you want to touch me, like it's like, and then at the end they were like, this is awesome, like I can't wait to go home and like beat up my brother. And I'm like just to see the body language and like their attitude about it change was like that to me is like, I don't know, that's where I draw like most of my like giving back, and like teaching other women how to do it is like, that means more to me than like any progress that I can make in the sport individually.
It's really amazing that you did that. Because yeah, actually the first time I went to 10th Planet, I brought a friend, like my best friend who's a woman, and I was like, come with me, I want to try this out, but like I didn't want to
do it alone.
Like I was comfortable to try out the techniques with her, but then that first class I only trained with her and Sophie. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
But I didn't even like go close to the men, because I was like, because like you said, like a lot of people will also go there for self-defense, and if usually it will be because maybe you're afraid of men or something. So like to confront yourself like that much to it right away is a lot. So then like the second class, like eventually like I rolled with a guy, and it was okay because I was like just focused on the technique and I kind of trusted the environment. But I don't know if I would have went back a second time if I had gone like directly with the men. Like maybe it would have been a bit too much, you know. I would have been like, no, I can't. Like it's emotionally a lot.
Yeah. And it, like you said too, like people who are going for self-defense, like probably half the time it's because something happened, and like just like being in that situation with men could be like very triggering. So like I think it's so important to just create that environment for women who want to start, just to have like, okay, this is what it's about. Like train here with us for 2 months, and then once you get your confidence up and your ability, like you know the sport, you're more confident, like then you could go into the room with like, you know what I mean? I understand the intimidation, but I agree. I think it's so important for people to just understand that it's a lot of the people too at my gym are not, they're like so nice, but just at first glance I understand it could be very intimidating. But yeah,
my perception of of like your 10th Planet vibe is like really nice and like geeky people.
Yes, this is why I love it.
Who are like so cool because you really own it.
100%.
But like 100%. I just love it because I'm a bit of a geek too, so that's why like sometimes when I see stuff on social media, also with the memes and like the whole, I don't know, it's like so fun.
But what's beautiful about that too is like, had I never found jiu-jitsu, I don't think I would have been friends with half of these people. And they're great people. Like they're some of the most influential people in my life. And like, I always use the example of Martin. I don't know if you know Martin, but he's an older man, like older than me. And I think he's like maybe close to his 40s, if not in his 40s. I don't want to overage him. He'll be upset at me. But like, I don't think I would ever be friends with like imagine I was like, yeah, mom, I'm going to hang out with my friend. He's like a 40-year-old man. My mom would be like, what? You know, but like, that's what's so beautiful about it. Like I would never have been friends with these people, but we have so much in common from jiu-jitsu. And then you learn more about these people that you would have probably never spoken to or like made friendships with. And it's like, it's so nice. And it also provides an opportunity for people. Like I'm very social, I'm very outgoing. I have a group of friends outside of jiu-jitsu also, but some people don't have that. So for them, they come to the gym and those are their friends that they hang out with. And so if they're not social outside of jiu-jitsu and they're kind of, I don't know, like introverted, jiu-jitsu, specifically the room at 10th Planet provides them like that opportunity to like shine and like be outgoing with people that are like, you know, like we all have that in common. So it's really like, it's so special. It's crazy that we have this like little community.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, I was going to ask a question about like, how do you imagine a future for the community? Like, even though gyms were closed, but I guess I feel like you jiu-jitsu fanatics will find ways. Like even like you said, like with your bubble, like if you a lot of people have mats at home, like those who really like it. So
you mean like in the context of COVID?
yeah, like even if something happens again and there's like a lockdown again, or even if
Yeah.
you're like in SaintKitts, a place where jiu-jitsu is
Mm-hmm.
basically frowned upon, you still found ways. So like it's a pretty accessible practice in the sense that you would just need like a couple of yoga mats and then anyone can kind of do it anyway. So
Yeah. I honestly, it's crazy for me to be back in Montreal and see like the progress, like people are allowed to go to restaurants. And like when I left, it was like complete lockdown. Like you couldn't go to a restaurant. Like I left in April 2021. So like to come back and see the progress that we've made so far, like most people are vaccinated, you're allowed to go to restaurants, like you're allowed to go out. And like I see it like I hope that it's going to continue like making the progress that we've been making, and we will be able to like get back to the way the gym was. I haven't even been to Saint-Planet. I'm like itching to go. I'm out of quarantine in like less than a week, and that's my first stop. So I don't even know like if the classes are like as big as they used to be, if we're even allowed to have classes that big. But just to see the progress, like it's nice to leave at a certain point and then not see anything and then come back to see the contrast. And so if hopefully when I'm back in December, it'll be like another big step and it'll be close to normal. But in terms of SaintKitts, I don't know. I think that my main training will be with my classmates. I think the community has a lot of work to do before they can get to having a 10th planet-like environment. But hopefully they can get there sooner rather than later.
Great. Now, the last questions are about amateur competitions of, well, I say non-Olympic combat sports, but recently, I don't know if you saw this summer, Muay Thai and kickboxing got recognized by the Olympic Commission. So I don't know if they're considered non-Olympic, but here in Quebec, like kickboxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and let's say mixed martial arts are not officially legalized at the amateur level for competitions. So what do you think about that?
I think it's sad. I think Jiu-Jitsu is, well, from my understanding of the situation, why it became illegal was a very political issue. I think there was like two people trying to run tournaments, like calling each other out on the legalities of the tournament. And it became like this, it almost reminds me of like if you're fighting with your sibling and then your mom is like, okay, no food, like no candy for anyone. And it's like, do you know what I mean? So I think it came down to like a political issue, which is really, really sad because it had the potential to be like so great. I really like, I think they like called it like prize fighting or something like crazy like that. And then again, that comes from, I think, people not really understanding the sport. I'm not hugely involved in like the movement to like re-legalize jiu-jitsu. I'm just like, personally, I'm like super fine training at my gym, and like we used to go to tournaments like in the States. Obviously it would be easier if they were at home. So I don't know too much about the movement that they're doing like to try to get it re-legalized, but I think it's really, really sad, especially for like young kids, because as a kid, like I loved like soccer tournaments. I played soccer and I didn't have to travel that far. Like I played hockey, like everything was like in my community. And so for kids who want to train jiu-jitsu and like do that competition and like challenge themselves, they don't have that opportunity in Montreal, which is what I think is like the biggest loss of it all, is for like the people, like the young kids who are trying to learn.
That's so true. And I guess the kids, like, it's a bit weird to them, even if they have the opportunity, let's say like financial or time to go out of Montreal and go to the States. Like you started jiu-jitsu when you were 18, so you probably understood the context and that it was like a political thing, but whatever. But like a kid who's 12 and who's like, oh, I'm gonna go to the States to compete this sport because it's illegal here. It's maybe a bit weirder to also for the parents.
For
it's
sure.
like, why would I want my kid to do an illegal sport if they don't have that understanding? So
I think jiu-jitsu would also be great in the Olympics. Like I think that would take the sport to a whole new level. And I don't know if it's close. I don't know if it's far from getting to that point. And I don't think that there's a huge lack of tournaments. I know that there's like an abundance of high level professional tournaments that are keeping athletes motivated. But I think that having it in the Olympics would bring the awareness to the sport, like to a whole other level, which would be like very, very progressive for jiu-jitsu. But I don't think that's like in the next 10 years, but we'll see. Like, hopefully. I say that and I'm like, I hope I'm wrong.
And you're talking NoGi or Ghee at the Olympics?
Both would be cool.
Yeah.
No,
that would be amazing. It would be like such a spin on the Olympics. NoGi Jiu-Jitsu. It's like super techno.
I know.
With like crazy lights. Imagine it'd be like another vibe.
It would be amazing too, because you have all the like traditional, like some of the people who do jiu-jitsu don't like look like crazy athletes, you know? So you have like these little skinny, scrawny guys coming in and then they're just like killers. It would be good TV.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much, Alyssa.
My pleasure. I love this project that you're doing. Honestly, it's really cool. And can I where can I listen to it after?
So I want to release it. Of course. Cool. Well, first of all, I'm going to send you an email with the links to the platforms.
Because I would like to listen to not just mine, like all the other ones too.
Yeah, there's other ones. So I wanted to do 20 participants, but since I'm doing this project in the summer and everyone's trying to like live after this crazy year, I got around there's going to be like around 15 episodes. And I'll put them on the podcast streaming platforms. There's a little website too.
Cool.
Yeah, I think you're gonna like it. I'm very pleased with like the people who were so open to share their stories, and it was really beautiful. And I got like different people from different disciplines, and so it's very interesting.
Very cool. All right, thanks so much for this.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it the weekend? I'm so lost. Yeah, have a good weekend.
It is. Okay, take care and good luck for that quarantine. Just